Hello, here we are, Stories at 7, or Jill and Ori for folks that like a story. I'm Kate Walsh, and myself and the wonderful Sue Elliott-Nichols are going to be reading, stories for you. That's the plan, anyway. And we thought that we could, given that it's the festive season right now, we are going to read a classic old children's Christmas story for you in the run-up to Christmas, which is now, it's Christmas 2020. Bit of a year it's been, as we all know. Anyway, the story that we're going to go with is Nutcracker and the Mouse King. And this was written by Ernst Theodor Wilhelm Hoffman in 1816. Imagine that. So right now, that's over 200 years ago. Some of the phrases and some of the descriptions might be a bit old-fashioned, but stick with us because it's a good old story. Boom. Excitement, thrills, a little bit of darkness, but hopefully it'll give you a little bit of joy in and around Christmas. So sit down, settle in. Oh, now before I carry on, I must tell you, I'm just going to read straight through. Me and Sue, we're just going to start and go. So there might be mistakes, there might be fumbles and stumbles, there might be visitations from cats or bangs from folk in the house. But just let them wash over you. Stick with the story and stick with us and we'll do fine. So, give yourselves a wiggle, get comfy in my creaky old chair. Are you ready? The Nutcracker and the Mouse King by ETA Hoffman. Chapter 1. Christmas Eve. All through the day of Christmas Eve, Dr. Stahlbaum's children had not been allowed into the dining room, much less into the drawing room opening out of it. In a corner of the back parlour, Fred and Mary sat cuddled up together, shuddering with excitement of mystery, for, though twilight had come on, nobody brought in any lights this evening. Fred whisperingly told his 7-year-old sister how, since early in the morning, he had listened to the stir and the bustle and the soft hammerings in these forbidden chambers, and how, not long ago, a small dark man with a great box under his arm had come slipping over the floor. But he knew very well that this was nobody else than Godfather Drosselmeyer. Then Mary clapped her little hands for joy, crying, "Ah! What fine things will Godfather Drosselmeyer have made for us!" Councillor Drosselmeyer, so people called him, was far from a handsome man. And we've got a little picture of him here. He was short and thin, with many wrinkles on his face, and a great black patch where his right eye should have been. Also, he had no hair on his head, so he wore a very fine white wig, which seemed to be all made of glass, so clever a piece of work was it. The godfather himself, indeed, was a very clever workman, who actually knew all about clocks and could even make them with his own hands. When any of the fine clocks in the Stahlbaum's house went out of order and did not strike, Godfather Drosselmeyer would come, take off his glass wig and his drab coat, tie on a blue apron and stick sharp things into the clock's insides, so that Mary felt quite sorry for it. But this did the clock no harm, which, on the contrary, got to life again, and at once began to tick, strike and chime to the delight of all the family. He never came without bringing something pretty in his pockets for the children. Now a puppet that could move its eyes and make bows, most comic to behold. Now a box, out of which would hop a little bird, or something else of that kind. But for Christmas, he always prepared some grand, elaborate piece of work that would cost him much trouble and time, on which account, when given to the children, it was actually taken charge of by their parents. Ah, what fine things will Godfather Drosselmeyer have made for us, Mary wondered. But Fred was of the opinion that it could this time be no other than a castle, in which all kinds of beautiful soldiers marched up and down and were drilled, and other soldiers were to come, who should try to get into the castle, But then the soldiers inside would fire off cannon and there would be such grand booming and banging. No, Mary cut him short. Godfather Drosselmeyer has told me of a beautiful garden with a great pond in it, on which swans with golden bands round their necks are to swim about and sing such pretty songs. Then a little girl will run up from the garden and call the swans to her and feed them with gingerbread. Gosh, how fanciful. Swans don't eat gingerbread, broke in Fred, rather rudely, and Godfather Drosselmeyer could not make a whole garden either. Anyhow, we get few of the toys he makes. They're always taken away from us, so I like much better the things that Papa and Mama give us, which we have for our very own and can do with what we like with them. He doesn't sound like a very grateful child, does he? Then the children went on guessing and guessing what it could be this time. Mary remarked how Missy Gertrude, her big doll, was much changed for the worst, since she kept tumbling over on the floor more awkwardly than ever, which never happened without leaving dirty marks on her face. And as for keeping her clothes clean, well, that was out of the question. All the scoldings in the world were thrown away on her. Well, she is a doll. Fred, for his part, dwelt on the fact that a fine wooden horse was much wanted in his stable, and how his toy soldiers were greatly deficient in cavalry, and his papa must be aware of that. I think that means he wants some more toy soldiers. These children knew well that their parents had brought for them all sorts of fine presents, yet they were persuaded that Father Christmas looked on them with friendly eyes, and bestowed, from his bounteous hand, the gifts that came more welcome now than at any other time. And as they kept on whispering over the expected presents, their older sister, Louisa, came to remind them that it is Father Christmas, who, through the hands of their dear parents, always supplies what will afford them real joy and pleasure, as he knows better how to do children themselves. Well, I'm a bit confused why this means. I think they're saying, older sister Louisa's saying that Father Christmas will give them presents that they like. That's nice. Little Mary became thoughtfully silent, but Fred murmured to himself, I should like a horse and some huzzas. It had grown quite dark. Fred and Mary, sitting closely side by side, did not dare speak a word. They fancied they could hear a fluttering of soft wings about them and a strain of beautiful music in the distance. A bright light gleamed upon the wall, and then they knew that Father Christmas was flying away on shining clouds to other children. All at once, a silvery bell went cling, cling. The doors flew open, and such a brilliance streamed out of the great room that the children stood as if enchanted on the threshold, with loud exclamations of wonder. But Papa and Mama came forward and took Fred and Mary by the hand, saying, come along, dear children, and see what Father Christmas has given you. There they are. Well, they're going through into this magnificent room. I wonder what's going to be in there. Well, we'll find out when Sue, the lovely Sue Elliott-Nichols, arrives with her chapters. And that's next. Thank you for bearing with us, and we will see you soon. Do take care. Ta-ra!